Well, hello everybody. Today I want to do a spotlight on the lore and the story of just one character. I want to catch you guys up to date on someone I think might be quite important for the next expansion, that's End of Dragons. She's a fascinating character who appears in the trailer and is likely going to have a big role in the upcoming story. But interestingly, as far as the previous plot exists, she's only had a very tiny role so far. Well, sort of. The point is that much of what she's been doing is a complete mystery, so it's really exciting to see her there. I'm talking, of course, about Mai Trinn. And what I'm hoping really here is that new players will have a sense of what's going on and don't miss out on this cool lead up into the story. So listen up, let's see what we've got. So Mai Trinn is a human of Tyria, a lady that first appeared during the Dragon Bash patch of Living World Season 1. Now, Living World Season 1 is now unplayable, and even if you did play Living World Season 1, the specific patches that Mai Trinn appeared in, maybe you missed out on. The truth is that the story I'm going to retell for you guys today, a lot of the times only existed for a couple of weeks before then actively being removed. So even if you came recently to the game in the Path of Fire era and you think you've played everything and you're up to date, you'll still be missing out on this hook. So Season 1 was the story in general of a Sylvari, a Scarlet Briar, bringing together multiple factions around the world in order to awaken a sleeping elder dragon, Morgemoth. Mai Trinn was the leader of one of those factions Scarlet had corralled into her ambitions, the faction called the Aetherblades. So the Aetherblades are a particularly cutthroat, antagonistic faction of sky pirates. This is a pirate group that flourished after the events of the original game, which is when Season 1 was set, and the airship technologies that were pioneered by the Pact in their campaign against Zhaitan. Well, the Aetherblades saw that, and a new age of piracy was born. They'd steal Pact airships, modify them with technology, and use them to commit their ill deeds. So they were originally actually aided and helped out by another faction, the Inquest, who hopefully you're familiar with. I always thought of the Aetherblades as just Lion's Arch pirates, but now with the money and the technology that the Inquest can provide, allowing them to take to the sky. And they had lots of holographic technology and stuff too. As the leader of the Aetherblades, it's possible, I guess, that Mai Trinn knows a little something about high-ranking Inquest secrets, but maybe not too, because the idea, after all, was that it was Scarlet putting these various factions together to commit this chaos around the world. So, we're in Season 1, and during this patch, Dragon Bash, this was a celebration of Zhaitan's defeat, we first ever saw Mai Trinn in the crowd. She was pretending to just be a general festival goer. Now's a good time to point out that Mai Trinn appears to be of Canthan descent, both ethnically and culturally, as her name Mai is actually a real-world Japanese name, and when we were in Canthan Guild Wars 1, we saw they lent on a lot of real-world Japanese stuff. Now, I don't remember any explicit story saying she definitely is Canthan, but I think the fact that she's appearing in the trailer for the Cantha expansion now tips our hand that she probably really is. Now, that fact might not even mean very much for what it's worth. The truth is that there are plenty of people of Canthan descent around Crater, just as there are lots of Orions and lots of Elonians. At the time of Guild Wars 2's launch, all these estranged people were living in places like Divinity's Reach, but they were cut off from their homelands. So maybe Mai Trinn's family gave her that name and still tried to practice, generally Canthan stuff. They eat rice bean cakes and so on. But does that mean they've actually been there or have any real insight as to what's going on in End of Dragons? Not necessarily, but maybe they do. One of the stories we kind of missed out on in Path of Fire was how all of those Elonians in Crater reacted to their homelands being opened up and explored. So maybe Mai Trinn will be giving us that kind of exposure as stories in End of Dragons. So, while Mai Trinn appeared to be a festival goer at Dragon Bash, in truth, Scarlet and the Aetherblades had a plan to assassinate one of the members of the Lion's Arch Captain's Council. And what that would do would open up a seat for Mai Trinn to take. And then Scarlet would have this inside track into Lion's Arch, which would help Scarlet with her later plans. That's more Season 1 story. Now, they would have gotten away with it too, if it wasn't for the player character, the commander, and Marjorie Delacroix, who investigated the situation. They were tipped off by another mystery character called E, and they thwarted Scarlet and Mai Trinn's plans. So at this point, Mai Trinn ran off, And next patch, we had a patch called The Sky Pirates of Tyria, all about the Aether Blades. In this storyline, we uncover a hidden base right in Lion's Arch, filled with piratey and inquesty technology, where Mai Trinn was hiding. We storm the base with the help of another Lion's Arch resident, Ellen Keel, and apprehend Mai Trinn. Mai Trinn goes to jail. Now, what's really important about this patch is you can actually still sort of play this bit in-game. If you go to the Fractals of the Mists, some of the islands in there are recreations of this Season 1 dungeon. You don't get the full dungeon, but you do get the big moments, including the final boss battle with Mai Trinn, where you can hear her voice. It's actually the footage that I've got on in the background. If you're a new player and you missed out on this story, I really recommend you play these Fractals before End of Dragons comes out in a couple of months, because you'll actually get to hear her voice a little bit and feel like you're a part of this big moment where she went to jail. So then, for a long time, Mai Trinn's in jail. There are still lots of Aether Blades about that are able to do things, but Mai Trinn is apprehended, and if I remember correctly, through various patches you could go and talk to her and get little bits of information. Later in Season 1, they had a patch called The Edge of the Mists, and in this storyline, Mai Trinn gets broken out, and she escapes into the mists. That whole scene actually happens off screen, so don't feel too bad like you're missing out. Even people who played the original content didn't see it. We only saw the aftermath. Now, the idea that she just randomly escapes into the mists might sound really weird, but it's important to note that the jail she was in Lion's Arch was right near the World versus World portals, and the lore is that she literally ran over to those gates and went in through those. From there, after her bust out, she made it to a new area of World versus World for the time called the Edge of the Mists. And that's why when you play the Edge of the Mists, there's Aether Blades there, because Mai Trinn in theory is somewhere in that environment, or the Aether Blades are now doing something in the mists. I'm unsure how many new players watching this video have actually been to that content, but it might be worth checking out as well. So you might feel like we're in the middle of the story at this point, and there's a lot more to come, but actually there isn't. Ultimately, we don't find Mai Trinn in the Edge of the Mists. She gets away, but the story does end with a tantalizing clue, and that's that Mai Trinn didn't just run to the mists to get away from Lion's Arch, but that Scarlet actually had a specific plan for Mai Trinn, something to do out there, but we don't know what it was. See, Season 1 continued. Aether Blades was still a part of the plot and around, but Mai Trinn wasn't. We have the big conclusion in LA where all the factions drill into the ley line with the Breachmaker and Morgemoth opens his eye. All the loose ends come together and everything makes sense, except Mai Trinn in the mists. And then what happened at the end of Season 1? We defeated Scarlet. She's gone. So how does Mai Trinn react to that? Does she continue working for her? Why would she? Scarlet's not even around anymore. There shouldn't be any point to continuing her mists plan, right? Now, in End of Dragons, something like 7 years later, we see Mai Trinn on an airship in the mists, accompanied by Aurene and a fascinating looking Asura companion. Pretty captivating, no? And so there you have it, that's the mystery, and now you're caught up. Who knows what she'll be doing and what the Aether Blades have an interest in Cantha itself. One other fun little mystery I want to tack onto this video is actually to do with another character, Marjorie Delacroix, obviously one of the main members of the cast. Now, Marjorie also is of Canthan descent, and Marjorie has supposedly 2 missing unnamed sisters. Sisters that are kind of written there in the lore, but we've never met at any point. We don't know who they are. Wiki suggests that they're married, but I can't find the source on that. I'm not sure where that comes from. That's a little detail to maybe consider, but you see the idea, given that another main character of End of Dragons is Marjorie, perhaps Mai Trinn is actually one of her possibly estranged or missing, so to speak, sisters. When I say missing, I don't mean that the story is that they're missing, I just mean that they've not appeared in the story yet. So maybe Mai Trinn sort of rebranded or reshaped herself. Marjorie doesn't realize she's interacting with her sister when all those stories were introduced all those years ago, and possibly they'll be resolved maybe in End of Dragons. I'll note as well, there's a crazy character in Lion's Arch called Wide-Eyed Miller, who just shouts random Guild Wars 2 conspiracy theories and mysteries around. One of the mysteries that he shouts is this exact idea, that Mai Trinn is Marjorie's sister. So the devs definitely know the community thinks that's a fun idea. Will Wide-Eyed Miller actually be right? Who knows? Maybe the fact that they have an NPC saying that is almost like a joke kills the idea, or maybe it makes the idea even more captivating. Miller also seems to be a little bit wrong, by the way. Miller seems to think there are only 3 sisters total, not that Marjorie has 3 sisters, which would be 4 total. So who knows? But that's an extra little mystery, and there you have it, guys. That's the story of Mai Trinn. My little thoughts and a recap for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you want other character spotlights, if this kind of lore is interesting to you, please support the video in any way that you can, and that will signal to me, hey, to make more. There's obviously a lot of characters that are going to be appearing in End of Dragons, and just in the story in future. Are you more interested in Marjorie? Are you interested in E? All that kind of stuff? We can do these little spotlights. It was an idea that somebody actually gave me on Twitch chat a few days ago, and I thought I'd try it out. So this is a bit of an experiment of a video. Thanks, guys. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. If there are any new players listening to me, in the background you can find a link to a new playlist I've made, which is specifically for new people. I actually only just recently added a new video to that playlist about what class you can pick. So there's some really fundamental, early new player ideas out there that you might find interesting either for yourself or for friends. Please do feel free to share them around and click the link and see how it goes.